Ops Up Inside Your Head, the conversation for ops leaders who want to focus on their habits to make their organizations brilliant. We meet amazing guests from around the world of operations, been there, done that, built the habits. These conversations are about unlocking what made our guests truly brilliant. Today, we're joined by the brilliant Stacey Williams. She has been working in business operations for the last 10 years in tech startups. She has experience as a coach and consultant with large global firms and their leaders. And after a turbulent 3 years, she is entering into the world of Generalist. Hello, Stacey. How are you?
Hi, Michael. I'm doing really well. Thank you.
Cool. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today. I know as a busy ops person / generalist, you must have a packed calendar. So I appreciate your time and you being with us. So would you like to give us a tiny intro of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from New Zealand. I've been across in the UK for 12 years now. And the majority of my time in the UK has been the majority of my career, which has been in ops. So I've tended to be sort of the first ops hire in most of the companies that I come into, and very quickly landed more or less every hat in the company except for technical ones, which is probably for the best. So it's been a very varied, busy, unusual, squiggly career path, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah, I think everyone in ops can relate to that, and that's one of the things I always see is when I check people's profiles out on LinkedIn, the squiggly path to getting that ops leader badge is varied. Okay, now we have to talk about the elephant in the room. My aim is to have people with ops in their title. That when we spoke, so yeah, generalist. But what is your current title? Just to see if we can allow this conversation to keep going.
Of course, my current title is actually operations coordinator, but I'm choosing not to put that public.
Yeah. And this, again, you've gone back to a small startup, is that right? You're working with someone a bit smaller now at the moment?
Yes, so it's a really new company in the Web3 space. They are 6 months old, so really early stage. So obviously it means wearing all the hats, but I think the title is one that seemed to work for them when they were looking for what they needed, and I will probably rapidly change as time goes on.
Yeah, and I think that really does like with good ops people, they quickly the title changes, doesn't it? It's like, oh my god, this person can do all of this stuff. And like, right, let's reward it. Let's keep that in the business. So, can I ask the idiot's question? What's Web3? Tell me, like, what is it in a nutshell?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I'm quite qualified to answer, but the internet has predominantly been Web 2 for some time, and that is where users input information. So we're talking about our social media, etc. Whereas Web 1 was the ability to like order pizza online, Web 2 has been the progression to have user interaction. Web 3 is like the next evolution of the internet. That is, you know, your AI and your crypto and more evolving technologies. So it's a really interesting space to be in, and it's my second time in the space actually. And can I explain it very well? Absolutely not. But it's definitely a fascinating space to be in.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. So it sounds a bit like one more step towards Skynet and it just the sentientness of the internet and it taking us all out, something like that.
I'm not sure if I'd go that far. I think we're way off that, but you know, the fear is strong.
Fear is strong, yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I can see those progressions. That's nice and clear. Thank you very much. I think you get it. Like that's a good understand. Good intro. Thank you. Right. First question I always ask people is. This first question is, can you list your job titles from about working age up till now? You don't need to go into the details, but this is part of this squiggly path to ops. So if you were to rattle off your job titles, what would they be between first job and
now? It's pretty much started at like office assistant to personal assistant to operations manager, chief of staff, head of operations, operations coordinator. So it's definitely been consistently inconsistent.
Congratulations on that consistency. And what does being an ops leader mean to you? You've done loads there. You almost hit everyone on that bingo card. But what does being an ops leader mean to you?
I think for me, it is being very willing and able to kind of take any problem and turn it into some version of a solution. I recently asked for feedback from a friend or from a few friends actually, and the consistent feedback I got was that I, unlike many other people they know, can take any problem, even if I've had no experience dealing with it, and just handle it. And I think for me, that is absolutely the key to being an ops leader, is being able to tackle whatever's thrown my way, because no one else in the business is set up to do that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I like that. Yeah. And that's a very opsy answer as well, is that I can just solve things that other people can't. I love it. I love it. So, getting a bit more into your personal habits. So, what is it that, how do you manage to prioritize and manage that in your day? So, what is your approach to the day to stay on top of it and solve all those mysterious problems?
This is a really interesting question, and it's something I'm currently learning about again. I have a 2-year-old, so for the last 2 years, my ops career has gone on it like an extra squiggly path. And prior to having my child, I felt like I was able to just kind of get up, sort my life out, like get exercise done, then sit down, like hash out some emails, figure out my to-do list, and just crack through an enormous amount of tasks. Now that we are slowly exiting the world of sleep deprivation, courtesy of my toddler, I'm now sort of realizing that actually I just cannot work to that same pace. I really need a lot more breaks. So I almost feel some resonance with, the conversations we're seeing about people with neurodivergence and sort of how they're managing their work schedules and their distraction levels and things like that. I'm now sort of seeing that I actually need to be able to like set myself a task and set myself a time limit and take regular breaks to be able to get through. So that's almost becoming my new habit.
Okay, yeah.
Hopefully over time that will evolve into like being able to crack out loads of work again. But at the moment, it's definitely, how do I create functional breaks and rest for myself so that I can actually focus?
Yeah. And that's really important, because on my journey, that's what I see, is people doing the thing that worked previously on a successful human being, and the context changes and it just doesn't work, and they end up burning out. Like when you've got a toddler and you're up at 4 a.m. and you're putting an extra meal in the day because the day is so long, that those energy levels do go up and down. I've been there, fallen asleep on the sofa at 4 a.m. So what is the go-to app thing that you use now to help you with that change of pace and how you're thinking about the world? What is the go-to thing that you're using?
My go-to thing that I've always used has been my inbox and Slack, which are the typical apps that I think many people in the startup space will use. But for me, it is using my inbox as a to-do list and using Slack to set up as many reminders as possible, even if it's multiple times, to get stuff done.
Okay.
But I'm now also a massive fan of Notion. So that holds my actual to-do list that I'm trying to get a lot better at shoving stuff into. So it's all kind of centralized. Are you about to ask what is Notion? Because I'd love to talk about that.
Oh yeah, no, because what my next question is actually, what habit are you thinking about? And it's the habit of Notion, by the sounds of it. So I
Yes.
love a bit of Notion. Notion's I like Notion.
It's wonderful.
It's wonderful, not too geeky. You can be a layman and still get quite a lot out of it. So tell us about your take on Notion. What's going on there for you?
Notion is like my ops dream, I think, but it's also a bit of a nightmare, and I'll talk a little bit about that. It's got everything I need to like organize a lot of things, but there's so much potential with Notion, and I just haven't even scratched the surface. And so I think I spend a lot of time procrastinating with Notion as well, because I'm thinking, actually, is there more I could do here? And I just haven't been able to sit down and really like dig into the various tools and abilities that Notion has. So I think realistically, if a Notion expert looked at my Notion account, they'd probably be like, this girl doesn't know what she's doing. But actually, like, it's working for me right now. And I think over time, I will use a lot more of the tools that it can, use basically. So I'm excited for that.
Awesome, cool. And what's the favorite thing you're playing with at the moment in Notion?
I'm working out sort of relations between different tables and how I can link that all up. So as a sidebar, I've been doing a separate job recently for a virtual assistant client which is off the back of the last year of nonsense of redundancies and sort of working out what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I've been building them out a CRM in Monday.com, which uses loads of relationships between charts and stuff. And so I'm starting to do this in Notion too, to see how useful that will be, but also to see is there more data we can pull together in a useful way?
Yeah, you got me excited. I've put my the Habits Hub into Notion, so people that join the program that I've got, it's all in there. So there's examples, there's calendars, there's tables. The to do, I love the to do. Have you seen the to do list option where you can flip between a Gantt, a project table, and a list?
Yeah, it's nice.
It's so amazing. It's just, but if we think about that in the context of a team, actually, the generational gaps that we have to close now across organizations, something like that is priceless, because you can have the person that wants everything in a list, you can have the person that wants the Gantt chart, and you can have the person that wants the table, and they're all working on the same project, but they're all doing it differently.
Yeah, it's much better. I think there's a big thing to be said about flexing tools to suit different learning and communication styles. We've very much come away from this idea that everyone operates in this one way, and that's the way that we're working together, to being able to have videos that turn into transcripts and podcasts, and I can then digest information visually, audibly, or by reading it. And I think that changes the game completely. So having tools that convert to-do lists into other useful ways of reading the information is incredibly useful.
Yeah, nice. Okay, love that. So it sounds like you're taking a lot in, building small habits. So what habit do you need to retire right now? What is the thing that served you well once that doesn't serve you anymore?
I don't know if it's a habit, but it's the belief system that I can just keep going and do absolutely everything that comes my way. And it's not for lack of being able to do it now. I think it's just, as I said before, the change in the way I need to operate. So trying to release sort of that belief system is very difficult, because the way that I see success for myself is how I serve others. And so being able to let that go and accept that actually, even at 50%, I'm still serving at maybe 90% is actually okay. And trying to manage that is really tricky, but it's a big one. And I don't foresee that, magically being okay anytime soon. I think it's going to take some time.
Yeah, well, that's deep, isn't it? Because I think we get we get momentum in the initial ops roles by saying yes and getting everything done in front of you, right? But then,
absolutely,
as you go up through the organization, you can no longer do the fun little things that give you those endorphin hits, and you actually have to say, right,
the firefighting, I like to call it, yeah,
the firefighting, that fires out, and it's like the buzz. But as you go up, you have to go, right, what's the bigger conversation here? What's the slow payoff? And
definitely,
you can't do both of those. And if you are having to focus your time on a brilliant tiny human being that you bring into the world, and the business, and the jobs, you actually have to say no to stuff, don't you? But by saying no to stuff, you're saying yes to other things. Though, you're saying a bigger yes to the things you're doing.
Yeah, but it's tricky because it really sort of feels like it's demeaning your abilities and your success criteria because you're having to say no. And so actually I had a really great boss at my last full-time role, where she kind of said to me in a one-to-one, now is the time to step away from the firefighting and focus on the bigger strategic projects in the business. You need to figure out how to delegate. And I've always found delegation really tricky, because in my world, I'm the best person for the job. If someone's asking me to do a thing, I know I can deliver it to this standard. It's going to be great. And I think there's a lot of ego in that. But I also think actually, people want to be given things to do. People want to be delegated to. And for you, as you said, it's about saying yes to other things by saying no to some. So sort of learning that, I'm still very much on that learning curve, and sort of unpacking that and figuring out how to recalibrate with that in mind is challenging, but I think ultimately going to be the next way I level up.
Oh, really interesting. Okay, cool. Okay, so that segues actually onto the next bit of this conversation. We start thinking about teams. Actually, as an ops leader, there is more to the world than just the things that you can do.
Yes,
What do you
definitely.
see as the habits of successful teams? What have you seen on your journey?
A willingness to be wrong. That's maybe not a habit, maybe that's an ethos or a belief system.
Yeah.
But some of the best teams I've been a part of have been so willing to engage in difficult conversations and conversations about opinions and things that they don't necessarily believe or agree with, but coming away from that either with a new viewpoint or a very new belief system. So, that I think is a massive key to success for teams. And how we foster that is through encouraging open communication. So, for example, on Slack, having as many conversations as possible in public channels so that there's not these backdoor conversations, there's not decisions being made separate to the rest of the company, wherever possible. Obviously, that's not exclusively possible. There are always going to be things that aren't appropriate for the public forum. But I think the more you involve everyone's viewpoints, the more value you're going to get out of a team. And that comes down to having those difficult discussions and talking through opinions that not everyone agrees with and coming up against that and being willing to be wrong or having strong opinions weakly held. So I really, really value that in a team overall. And I'm very fortunate that this new team I've come into very much do that, I think, in the best way I've seen so far. There's no sort of shying away from those difficult conversations.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's a nice element of transparency there, isn't there? Of actually what you're saying is those conversations being had in the public forum about which way
Mm-hmm.
should we go with this project? Is it left or right? And I'm guessing because everyone will have an opinion. Well, lots of people have an opinion, and sometimes you lose people when decisions are made when someone could have given something and they weren't included. So
Yes, I definitely agree.
how how do you bring new people into that then? Because that's quite a different way of working. For some people, that's probably
Mm.
not is conversations in channels that pre-existed your existence in a big business, and someone who's more established than you goes, "We should do this thing," and they're like, and then someone like, and it's not. It's like, why would we do that? How do you encourage those new
I
people into those conversations?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think there's a big piece around like culture fit, and there's so much conversation at the moment in sort of the people up space about culture fit is just a really easy way to say you don't want to hire someone. And to some extent, I think probably that is a really great scapegoat. But in many ways, I think if someone is right for your business and is right for your team, and that is your mode of communication and your mode of discussion, then actually, if you're bringing the right people with the right fit and the right culture into your business, who have those beliefs or reflects that they can share their opinions and not be so attached to them, and maybe can like park their ego for the minute. I think you can easily foster those conversations because people want to share their opinions, people want to be a part of the conversation. I think you've got an issue when you have people who want to be right all the time, and you can't
Mm.
avoid that. Like, I think that's just part of growing up, it's part of maturing, it's part of developing in your career, is wanting to be right. I've definitely lived that, and I still want to be right all of the time. I just now can accept that I'm often not right, and actually there's something really interesting in knowing that I'm not always going to be right. But when you're building a team and when you're bringing people in, I think you look for those people that share that value, and those that in itself fosters that openness and that transparency and discussion and sort of difference in opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love that. I love that. So if that's the culture, how what are you thinking about? So in this role you're working at the moment, where you're building things out, how are you thinking about like the future teams that are using the things that you're doing?
Mm. So I'm thinking a lot about like what are the tools and ways of working and systems that we need to support that potential team. So at the moment, like we're really early stage, we've only got a handful of people working with the team, and I know that growth period is going to hit inevitably, if not very soon, shortly thereafter. And so, although it doesn't make sense to put some of those things in place right now, we're starting to have the conversations around like what is going to foster growth, development, really good working, an open culture for discussion now that we can then bring in as we bring in sort of the new cohort of people. So this for me like comes from so many learning experiences from previous roles, but also conversations I'm seeing in different sort of ecosystems. The People Up space is talking a lot about people as a product at the moment, which is really interesting. There's a really great community I'm part of called Generalist World, which is talking a lot about how we support our people, how we support generalists, and how they're really valuable for the business. And, you know, I think all of these different conversations and learning experiences for me are building up to hopefully build a great experience and great supporting structure for new people to come into this business so that we can foster that culture of like open discussion and really like kick-ass workers who want to come in and make stuff happen in a really good way and who are innovative and you know, want to be part of the same team. So I suppose it's very like big picture at the moment, but equally I think the point between big picture and needing those things to be in action is going to be a very short space of time. So it's kind of encouraging those conversations now so that we can nail it down very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I love like the depth there in your answer, and it has to be right if these bit because I guess one of my thoughts is around this Web3 space is that if any organizations are going to be able to leverage the world of automation, it's going to be the Web3 organizations because they understand it and they get it. So actually the scaling, plugging things into yourself to make your organization better, I'm guessing is pretty, it's almost the norm in Web3. So is there any difference you're seeing in between the Web3 world and the world pre-Web3 in terms of how the business thinks, in terms of like scaling and how it works? What are you seeing?
I would say like, so for the past 4 years, I've been in like the Web3 cryptocurrency blockchain space. And what's been really nice about that is everyone is very tech native. And so I live in a world where people come to me for IT support. So like all of my friends and family are like, oh no, like this thing doesn't work. How can I fix it? Da, da, da. That's the world I live in. I like, you know, I tech my house. I find ways to use apps to make my life better. Granted, I have friends who do this to a much higher extreme, but you know, I live in this space where I would consider myself a tech native. And for me, tech is supporting everything I do, work, business, play, the whole lot. I think there are businesses that are still not tech native. And I'm talking specifically about like my experience in a consulting firm. It was a small firm, but there was just this new idea of like, hey, we could use these tech tools to build a learning development platform. And, you know, I migrated everyone from Microsoft to Google. And that in itself was a huge shift for the better, in my opinion, but I won't go into the politics of MS versus Google right now. And you know, these little changes were so easy to make and so simple to my tech native brain, but they made such a big difference to this non-tech business. And I've seen that again, like in some of the freelance jobs that I've been doing over the last sort of 12 months, has been, you know, anything that isn't a tech business is sort of still stuck in this sort of Web 1, Web 2 tech infrastructure. And I think there's so much room for improvement there. But I think there's also a real big disconnect between what tech can do and sort of almost like a fear of tech in itself.
Yeah.
And a really interesting point of that is before I moved into the blockchain Web3 world, I was working with a consultancy firm that was talking about how great blockchain was. And even then, with my lack of understanding, I could still hear how disconnected their views of blockchain and the realities of blockchain were. And I think that is twofold. It's one, there's like, you know, articles and media that are talking about technology in one way, like AI. We're hearing a lot of fear mongering about it. And then there's the reality of where it's actually at. It's like ChatGPT can do really cool things, and you know, there's amazing tools that can take notes from your meetings, and it does a really good job, but it's not a sentient being. You know, I just think there's a real big disconnect. There's your tech natives, and then there's kind of everyone that's still in that pre-Web 2 space of not bringing tech along and not taking themselves along with it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that really answers your question, and that was a bit of a rant. Apologies, but I think there's
Well,
such a big gap,
I
and I
love
think
it.
there's a lot of fear about tech.
Yeah. Yeah, but that is a real challenge. I work with business as well, and actually, some of them are struggling to move from the one to two. So let alone beyond. And I was at a conference yesterday, and there's showing me this platform where they can ingest your knowledge hub and create the IR bot of it. And I saw this demo. It was like 4 or 5 minutes to ingest the whole knowledge hub, and then you had a help bot, and it was answering questions, and it was just like you didn't need to clean it. You just drop the URL in, and the internet magic happened. And it was just this bot existed, and it just where people have gone from like botty customer service. I've got a geeky customer service world of like 5-10 years ago. People going, yeah, we have to write all the answers, and then if it hits it, it does that. It's like, no, not anymore. You just drop your URL into this thing, and it just eats it, and it gives you a fully not sentient being, but something that will do most of the low value work.
Yeah.
So thinking, stepping back into like the business. So we've got a new team, big business stuff. How do you bring those people along when you've got those sort of technology barriers or nativity?
Yeah, this is something I'm just like trying to figure out myself, because even, working with tech native people, there still is resistance to change. And I think that's just the nature of people as what they are. We don't like new things. We don't like change unless we understand it, generally speaking. And I think as long as there's a really good business case for, implementing something new, sometimes it is just we need to implement this thing to try it. And, we're currently doing that with a couple of tools ourselves. And maybe it will work, maybe it won't. But I think there's a willingness to kind of give it a go and see what happens. And I think the benefit is that we're tech native, and so that feels very normal to do. We know there's like, you can switch it off, you can cancel a subscription, it doesn't matter. But I think people are a little bit nervous about doing that in case it becomes a problem or in case it breaks. And so I think there's a couple of things. I think we need to educate more about the benefits of tech for non-tech businesses. I'm not sure how we do that, but I think there is a big piece of like removing fear from tech, removing the idea that you can break things. I mean, it's just not possible. Like, I definitely am someone that just sits here and like bashes away at stuff until it works, or it doesn't. And either way, I can still switch it off at the end of the day. I can still like cancel a subscription. So you just can't break these things. And I think people do worry that they're going to break it. I've had so many people say that to me as well. So trying to bring people along with this idea that you can't break tech, generally speaking, is probably a step in the right direction. But I think also like not getting too carried away, finding tools that are useful and finding tools that will make our lives easier is really important. Implementing stuff for the sake of having cool tech is waste of money and time.
Cool. No, like it. That focus on the real value. Don't go for the fads. Okay, what's the fad then? What fad are you seeing at the moment that we shouldn't be wasting our time on?
What fad am I seeing? There is, it's tricky to answer that because the reality is the tech is always listening. And so it's feeding me the average of the people I surround myself with. So, I'm seeing things that are, realistically, if I talk about stuff that I'm seeing, it's probably not that relevant to maybe this audience or maybe you or, Bob down the road. But I think there might be a couple of things. I think being in the crypto space has been quite insightful because I entered when crypto was in a really good place. And then I left at the tail end of a really bad place. So I was made redundant from my last crypto Web3 job. And I'm now back in that same space, albeit in a different sort of sector within the space. And, we're coming into good times again. And I guess because of that, I've entered back into this conversation, into the social space of everyone's perspectives on what's happening in the market. And I can absolutely see we're suddenly getting like famous people and influencers buying back into crypto. And I can see that becoming a big fad. Again, despite the learnings from last time, which were hardcore and gnarly. And I just cannot caution enough, like, if you don't understand it, seek first to understand and then go and buy into all of the cryptos. Like, and I think this applies to anything. You know, if you see a fancy app that's going to tell you your life's going to change if you use this for 30 days, go and do a little bit of research about what it's actually doing, because chances are the habits it's informing you and you're paying for, you could probably just go and do it yourself. And then if it doesn't work, you're not losing out on anything. I think there's a lot to be said for, like, rather than following fads, seeking first to understand what's really going on here and then buying into it if you still agree. And this, like, for me is a massive thing in crypto. I get a lot of people going, oh, should I buy some Bitcoin? And I'm like, do you know what blockchain or Bitcoin does? And they're like, well, no, of course not. I'm like, go and find out, like, go and do some reading about this, because all of the projects, you know, they all do different things. And I think unless you understand what they're doing, you can't really buy into that. You can't hope it's going to be good just because everyone else is having a good time. And I think this is the fad we need to get away from.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, I like that. Cool. Okay, so you mentioned something, like you're saying about the some of your conversations are about the people who you surround yourself with, and, like, in terms of what's popping up on your device. It's really interesting around that and sort of leadership and ops, because the ops person in a business tends to be the different person, I find, to the rest of the people in a company more often than not, because you do the things that other people can't. How do you make sure that you've got, like, a good set of people around you?
I think it's been really accidental for me. Actually, I'm not sure if I've made sure of it or if it's just worked out that way.
There's nothing wrong with a happy accident.
There's been maybe like one job in my career where I've come away from that and been like, actually, I feel like that group of people perhaps felt idealistic and were not necessarily the best people for me to be around. But when you're in it, you don't realize that, because you're busy I for one am busy absorbing, you know, different things from different people, their ways of talking and their ways of working and their different habits and things. You know, I'm a real chameleon. I spend a lot of time subconsciously picking those things up. There are just, you know, even words that other people say that suddenly I'll start saying it. Recently, my mum said, you started saying tricky, and I, you know, we only know one person in our whole, you know, friendship circle that says that word. I mean, I've not seen that person for years. So it's obviously something I've just picked up from a circle of friends or whatever. And I think there's been one job where I've been in and I've come away from that feeling that was not a healthy time for me. Otherwise, I feel like I've gotten very, very lucky in that the people who I've worked with have been really interesting and really knowledgeable about what they're doing and have shared really great habits with me. And I'm friends with so many of them still, even after, you know, we're talking 6-8 years. And it's been very accidental. I feel I'm not a very extroverted person, and I wouldn't say I'm great in a social situation. So I think it's just been very lucky that I've stumbled into certain companies that have good groups of people. You know, it's not always perfect, but I think I've come away with some really great pockets of people and friends that I've really enjoyed working with. So I'm not sure what the secret sauce is there, but I think I've just been very, very fortunate in my time.
No, that's good. No, I like that. And it does matter, doesn't it? The people around you can make an organisation, and everything you explain, like, at the moment, is that have a culture where you can challenge each other, and it's okay to challenge, and actually prepare to fail, and, like, be open to new things like that. They all sound like really interesting places to work, and it like that sounds like a nice balance.
Yeah, I think the key for me, and I've said this recently to other people as well, is the older I'm getting, the more I'm realizing that I just don't know so much. And that to me is like such a beautiful position to be in, because the more that I don't know, the more there is to discover. And if I come at life and at work and at ops with this attitude of, I might not know everything here, I think that's making me more able to adapt and to solve problems and to flex the way that I work and my communication style to sort of adapt better into wherever I'm working or wherever I'm supporting. And hopefully I can instill that into my toddler, and hopefully, you know, that's a really useful learning for other people, because I just think, you know, in my 20s, I absolutely thought I knew everything. I was an expert on all the topics, and I think that's our 20s to a T, isn't it? But now that I'm in my like mid 30s, I'm definitely really appreciative of the fact that I'm recognizing I just don't know it all, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think the people that know they don't know it all are some of the most effective people I meet, because they come in and they know they can be wrong, and they know they need other people because they don't have it. And, yeah, I love it. Do you know the facts about maths and measuring them? Because every time you go down a scale on a map, the circumference will get longer, because you unveil more detail to the map. So if you can't measure the circumference, no, the perimeter of that UK. If you were to measure it, it'd be one distance. But then you go in a scale and it gets even longer. And it's just like what you're saying there about when you know something, if you decide to get a bit closer, you're like, oh my God, there's all of this stuff I don't know over here, and there's all this stuff I don't know over here. And it's always it keeps me grounded. So then you think you're good, take a step in a bit closer, and then you'll find all the other things that you're like, oh, that's interesting. But then that gives you more things to explore, more things to understand.
Yes.
So I love it.
Definitely.
Cool. We're almost there. We're almost at the end of our conversation. Really enjoying this. So I've got some quick fire questions for you, if that's okay. And then
sure.
Yeah, cool. Don't worry, there's nothing heavy. Question number one: you got a difficult stakeholder. What's your go-to communication habit to get them on board?
Seek first to understand. So figure out what they're being difficult about, why they feel like it's a tricky situation, and then find a solution off the back of that.
Nice. Love it. You got a tight deadline. How are you getting it
done? I work really well to deadlines. The tighter, the better. So I just like fire through stuff. I like a bit of pressure.
Yeah, but what is it you're doing though? So if you, like,
what was it I'm doing? I'm sitting at my computer till midnight with a cup of coffee and hoping for the best.
Okay, so it's just pure hard work. And, like,
it is pure hard work. It is maximum type speed.
Okay, love it. Cool. You're working in a team. You've hit a major milestone. How do you celebrate?
Probably with like a really good GIF on Slack, to be honest. I like to stay in my house. So
yeah, no, it's like a good GIF. Good, love it. What book should I read?
Oh God, what book should you read? This is meant to be quick fire. Okay, it's not business. It's The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I bloody love it. I've read it so many times, and it is heavy, but it is good.
The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Okay, I'm going to add that to my.
It's high fantasy. List. It's high fantasy.
So I might add it to my Audible list then. I generally add these all to my list, and they're on my Christmas list. So I will get surprises at Christmas. I go, what can I buy you? Here's my book list. Surprise me.
That's a really good idea.
Cool. Almost last question. What's your go-to habit to make sure that you are home on time to your family? And I know you work from home. So what is the habit you have to close the laptop, park all those emails you're writing? What do you do?
I have my like out of office blocked out in my diary from 5:30 till like whatever time. So if I'm working late one night, it'll be 5:30 till 8 p.m. and then I'll take calls after that. Because we work cross time zone. But if I'm like done for the night, then in my diary it's out of office, and that's it, and that's my line. So that's on like auto repeat every week.
Okay, nice, cool. And how do you what's your mental habit for detaching from the work?
It used to be a lot of anxiety and no detachment, but nowadays I think my biggest focus is like I need to get tea sorted before my child gets home and attaches herself to me. So like I have a deadline, and after she gets home there is just no chance I'm going to do anything independently. So that is the That is the promise.
Nice. Love it. And before we wrap up, are there any final words of wisdom that you've got for anyone aspiring or going through this wonderful world of ops and their own journey?
I told this morning I was helping my sister-in-law get her kids out the door for school. And my 8-year-old niece was having a tricky time getting out the door, and she was feeling like her friends can do so many things so much better than her. And I thought, this is it. This is my moment. And I said to her, I've just figured out after 30 something years that I'm a generalist, which means I'm okay at a lot of things. And I said to her, like, if you can figure that out right now, you're going to be absolutely kicking ass for like your whole life, basically. I appreciate those words definitely went over her head. But I think my parting comment here is like, you know, if you're in ops and you feel like you're floundering at any point in your career and you feel like I'm just not good at that one thing, please remember that actually the world needs more people that are good or okay at a lot of things. And those are the people with the superpowers in the organization. So hone your inner generalist, because it is absolutely like the game changer in my career, I think, to date.
Oh, I love it. I really do. Thank you so much for sharing this conversation with me. I really enjoyed it. For the people listening,
My pleasure.
I like any links that we've discussed. So the Generalist community will drop into the comments on this, and the book as well. You have to remind me because I've already forgotten. My head is busied off.
Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I'll send it to you later. Don't worry.
Perfect. Yeah. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you? Where's the best place to find you?
LinkedIn for sure.
LinkedIn for sure. Cool. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Thank you very much, Stacey.
Thank you so much.